Hi, Sid Dobrin here with another Inventive Fishing Gear review. In this review, I'm going to take a look at the Torpedo Bait Bucket. The Torpedo Bait Bucket is designed for kayak angling, and it's designed in response to the long-held difficulty that kayak anglers face in storing live bait. Basically, kayak anglers have two choices when it comes to storing live bait. They can try a live well on the boat, but there are very few of those made specifically to account for the minimal space on a kayak, so many yak anglers end up building their own. Even the custom-built models, though, can take up a lot of space, and they're often very difficult to reach on your yak. The second option is to drag a bait bucket with you tied to the yak. Now, traditional bait buckets and even models like the popular Flow Troll, though, they create so much drag that it's almost impossible to paddle while dragging the bucket. Even innovative models like Ego's Bait Mark are cumbersome, and they create so much drag that you really can't paddle with them. By the way, check out our review of the Ego Bait Mark on InventiveFishing.com to see exactly what I'm talking about with the drag in the kayak. So the Torpedo Bait Bucket was made to alleviate the drag issue with its unique hydrodynamic design. The Torpedo is made from a UV stabilized polypropylene, and it measures 21 inches long by 4.5 inches wide. The bottom portion of the cylinder works like a large cup, so you can hold bait and water when it stands up for transportation out of the water. It sells for $29 on the Torpedo Bait Bucket webpage and a ridiculous $40.98 on Amazon.com. Keep in mind that you can get a Frabil Flow Troll new for anywhere from $8 to $25, so the price point on the Torpedo in and of itself isn't a selling point. Now, the concept of the Torpedo Bait Bucket is great. A bait bucket that tows with little resistance and that can stand up and hold bait when not on the water. The problem, though, is that despite a great concept, the product just doesn't succeed in its effort. First, when standing up, the Torpedo offers a relatively small holding capacity, which I guess is fine if you've got a few dozen shrimp or some mud minnows or one or two finger mullet, but not much more. If you want to transport offshore baits like goggle eyes, forget it. This isn't going to do it. Likewise, when standing, there's no place to run a hose from a bubbler to keep the bait alive during transport before you get the bucket into the water. Second, and one of my biggest complaints about the bait bucket, is the door mechanism. The hinge is absolutely unreliable. The hinge itself is a simple molded C-clip, but that clip has a tendency to pop off easily. In fact, when you get the Torpedo, the door hinge is secured both with the clip and with two zip ties in anticipation of the hinge not holding. Unfortunately, the zip ties are also flimsy, and I had to replace the manufacturer's zip ties with my own after my first use of the Torpedo. And at the other end of the door clip is also poorly designed and has a tendency to not catch, or it easily opens. Twice I've lost my daily bait because of the door clip. As to the primary design feature, the hydrodynamic shape, there's no question that the Torpedo flows better behind the yak than any other bait bucket available, but it's not as dragless as you might want it to be. In my using of the Torpedo, I could still feel a significant drag, though, as I said, not as much with other buckets. Likewise, as you can see from these videos, the Torpedo has a tendency to dive when I increase my paddle and am trying to move a bit faster. The dive often results in the Torpedo hitting the bottom in skinny water, and if you're fishing oyster bars, grass, or other cover, that can often mean snags, or at best collisions that pop open the door. Ultimately, the design just hasn't been perfected enough to give the Torpedo a reliable flow behind the yak. Interestingly, too, Amazon.com identifies that the product most frequently purchased with the Torpedo is Shoreline Marine Goop, a marine repair adhesive, which seems a bit telling to me that if the other thing you want to buy with this bait well is a repair goop, little hint there. Likewise, I noticed that Amazon only has 4 reviews of the Torpedo, all of which review the thing well. 2 specifically noting that the Torpedo has 0 drag, which as you can see from the videos I've been showing is total BS. Look, I get that any tow-behind bait system is going to add some resistance and drag, and that the Torpedo does so to a lesser degree than other bait buckets. But there are enough flaws with the design and construction that the Torpedo just doesn't step up in comparison with other bait buckets like the Flow Troll, which I absolutely won't tow behind while paddling. Ultimately, there are just too many problems with the Torpedo bait bucket for me to recommend it. Yes, the concept is good, but the current iteration needs more time and R&D before fulfilling its projected goals. I hope you found this review to be useful, and I hope you'll check out all of the other reviews and resources at www.inventivefishing.com. And be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Fish on.
Can't.